11 more days.
We have a party at the Yuletime time. One year they had 1,000 people.
11 more days.
Okay, I'll stop. We're almost ready. And we want to get 1 or 2 pictures.
Okay.
Okay, welcome very, very much to Conversation. A great pleasure to welcome to the program Adam Clayton Powell III. He is a member of the New York City Assembly, New York State Assembly, and he's also a candidate for District 15 for the United States Congress. And Clayton Powell IV, welcome very, very much to Conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
We met briefly the other day. It's good to talk with you here in this election season and so forth. I wonder, before we get into any discussion of the election and that sort of thing that's pending, could you share your own background, if you could? Born and raised, a little of your education, and then we can talk about politics, human condition, and so forth.
Well, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, the son, of course, of who many remember as a legendary civil rights figure. Not only for Black Americans, but for all America.
Absolutely.
My mother is Puerto Rican, still alive. And I went to school at Howard University and Fordham Law School, not far from here.
Okay, good.
And so, upon graduation from Fordham Law School, my life has been about public service. I went to work with the Bronx County District Attorney's Office as an assistant district attorney. I then ran for city council in 1989, unsuccessfully. I ran against then Councilwoman Carolyn Maloney, who's now in Congress. Having lost that race, I then went to work for the newly elected New York City Comptroller, Elizabeth Holtzman.
Okay.
I started with Liz Holtzman when she was Comptroller. She was elected in '89, and I lost in '89. And I started with her in January 1990. I worked with her for a year and a half, and in 1991, following the new districts, new city council districts that were created, in the charter there was a change the districts and change the powers and eliminated the Board of Estimate and all that.
That's right. That made a big change, didn't it?
Yeah, because the Board of Estimate, if you recall,
had real power.
Of course, but it violated the one person, one vote. Because how could the board president from Staten Island have the same power as the board president from Brooklyn or the board president from Queens? And so that's what was challenged, and that's what was taken all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled correctly that it violated the one man, one vote.
Made a difference in terms of the power influence that the various borough presidents had, don't you think?
Sure. Back in those days, the Board of Estimate ruled everything.
Right.
Land use matters, budgetary powers. The city council was a joke. I mean, it was nothing but a rubber stamp, and it could change street names, so to speak, and change park names. But other than that, all the powers were vested in the Board of Estimate, which included the mayor. Included the 5 borough presidents with 1 vote apiece, and the 3 citywide elected officials, the mayor, the comptroller, and in those days a public advocate was called city council president. They had 2 votes apiece. So that's 6 and 5, 11. And any 6 votes out of 11 was a majority, obviously. But again, the courts ruled that was unconstitutional, and as a result of that, the 1989 Charter Revision Commission had the mandate to reapportion the powers from the Board of Estimate, and much of those powers were apportioned to the City Council and to the mayor. And so today we have that type of government, and so...
Didn't you serve on the City Council?
Yes,
right.
I'm going to get to that. I ran and lost in 1989. But as a result of the newly created powers, and also they reconfigured the city council districts.
More or less, the same number, more districts.
There used to be 35 council districts, roughly about 210,000 population each. And in 1991, or right before that, they were changing the lines to create 51 city council districts. Which
so there were some new opportunities.
Of about 145,000 population each.
There wasn't any gerrymandering going on?
So therefore, the idea was to create opportunities for more minorities, more women, the first openly gay district councilman from the village, and so on and so forth. And so in my neighborhood, one of those newly created districts was established north of 96th Street in East Harlem. I ran in 1991. There were 9 candidates, as any vacancy brings many candidates. Election night, primary, I was actually down by 34 votes to William Del Toro. The Del Toro machine ruled East Harlem for many years, and I ran against the brother of the assemblyman. And long story short, we lost the primary, but we took it to court. And so we went to the Board of Elections, and we did all the research on 70,000 voters, even those that did not vote. And of course, on the 15 or so thousand that did vote. It took us 3 weeks, but finally we went to court with all that evidence, and we gained a special election, and I was elected to the New York City Council October 28th, of 1991.
Congratulations.
And condolences,
yeah, right.
say,
you got
because,
perseverance. Yeah,
you know,
right.
It's a thankless job, as they say, but it's a great job. And
yeah.
so I was in the city council in the 1990s.
And you're representing that district of East Harlem, is that it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
East Harlem, and the city council district also takes in a portion of the Upper West Side.
Okay.
I had an office on Columbus between 107th and 108th Streets.
Right.
And also a little piece of the South Bronx.
Okay.
That's the city council district. Over the last 10 years, I've been in the state assembly, which really only covers East Harlem and a small piece of Harlem.
How many
No
assembly
Bronx, no
districts
Upper West
are
Side.
there in New York? Do you happen to know?
There are
a couple.
Well, in the city of New York, there are, I believe, about 67 or
No,
so.
but I meant for the whole state.
Oh, 150 assembly
150.
members. Yes,
Okay,
in
it's sort of
each one us.
comparable to the House of Representatives, in a sense, in terms of the state level.
We
right.
have 150 assembly members,
Right,
62 state senators, and of course that's a bicameral system of government.
Right.
And so, you know, my life has been about public service, not political service, because I hate the word politics.
You
I'm
do.
not a politician.
Yeah.
I made a commitment to myself. I got to
Okay.
tell you, in 1991, when I was first elected,
Yeah.
that whatever I would do, I would never become just another politician. And thank God, knock on wood, to this day, despite the pressures, despite the trials and tribulations and the system, so to speak,
Yeah.
I've managed to, you know, stay true to myself, true to my public service calling, and just still be a real person, which I've seen so many others,
Right.
and I've seen it happen over 20 years in politics. I've seen so many others just come in with get elected with the right frame of mind, and even fighting the system, and with the right heart and everything. And as soon as they get elected, you can almost see the change is coming.
Yeah.
It may take only 6 months, or it may take a couple of years, but you can see the changes, how they try to become political animals. I don't want to become a political animal.
There are a lot of people who are seeing things that way. I wonder, we'll just jump to the national thing with Mr. Obama now. There are a lot of people of the Democratic stamp who think that he had such a silver tongue, he was such an orator and everything. And then they always say, and the pundits will always say, well, you have to adjust to reality, political reality, and they make those changes.
You're only one person, particularly as a legislator.
Also, it's different between a primary election and a general election, because you're dealing.
No different.
No, I mean, well, on a national level.
No,
you don't
on
think?
the national level.
Okay.
You know, you come in with the right frame of mind and with the right set of ideas, and you can affect change. You can't change the world, but you can certainly make changes within your district, within the city, and perhaps you know, within the nation.
Well, from what you said, I'd like to talk some about Puerto Rico, because I spent I spent 10 months down there and loved it and everything. But that's another thing. Yeah, I loved Puerto Rico. It was just gorgeous. It's got a lot to say for a lot of Puerto Rican influence here in the city and everything. And you've got influence, and you understand that really, and that's important.
I represent Spanish Harlem, which is actually the birthplace of the Puerto Rican migration to the United States back in the 1930s and 40s.
Right.
From Spanish Harlem, they branched out to the Bronx, Brooklyn, and to many other parts of Pennsylvania of the nation.
They had a guy, Munoz Marin.
He was the governor. He was a legendary governor. 1944 through 1960.
That's when I was there, 54. And it was gorgeous, just gorgeous. I loved it. It was great, Commonwealth and all that. But I wonder maybe we could. Well, okay, you said you come into a campaign or into your public service, and you've got certain right principles, you say, right ideas. What are some of the grounding principles that inform your sense of responsibility in terms of representing the people?
Yes. A, listen more than talk. Listen to the people's needs. B is having listened to that. Obviously, I know affordable housing.
Affordable housing is huge, isn't it?
It is. In my assembly office, I dare say 9 out of 10 constituents are walking with some sort of housing issue. Either they need affordable housing, or they're having problems with their landlord. I mean, housing in general. Yeah, right. It's the biggest issue, and obviously jobs. You know, there's no better constituent service than finding somebody a job, but it is so difficult. You know, 10 people may walk in looking for a job, maybe 1 or 2 that we could eventually find a job for. It's a very difficult market, very tough.
Particularly now it is. And Lord Keynes, I don't know if you studied economics when you're undergraduate, and Lord Keynes said that he wrote a letter to his grandchildren. And it's also, you're hearing more and more in the dialogue now, in the current situation with the economic problems we've had since September 2008 and so forth, of jobless recovery, they say. And Lord Keynes wrote a letter, Theoretical Economics, saying that there is a trend in history that the grandchildren he wrote it in 1930 and wrote it out, and he said the grandchildren in their maturity will be confronted of the world, and the Western world particularly, will be confronted with something that's very hard to understand. And he said, but you're going to be confronted with massive technologically induced unemployment. He said that.
Yeah.
And there are people now, and with you got these things coming, that the input to production is increasingly all kinds of things that don't require like labor, like Henry Ford's assembly line and so forth. And whether or not we're going to be able to distribute income to the masses of the people as we have through labor criteria or jobs is in question in the minds of intellectual economists and so forth. I wonder what you think. That still is the way in which we distribute demand to the masses, right?
Let me bring it to Northern Manhattan.
Please.
That's why I'm so
okay,
proud
good. Thank you.
In my neighborhood of
Right.
East Harlem, when new projects go up. We recently had the grand opening of the East River Plaza, which has Target, Costco, Box Furniture, many other big retail stores. And so it's creating hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and mostly coming from East Harlem. I'm very proud to have not only Hunter College coming to East Harlem, but I'm proud that I persuaded and I brought Hunter College to the neighborhood. It's a beautiful part of the City University system, of course. A beautiful campus is being built on 3rd Avenue between 118th and 119th. And not only the jobs, hundreds of jobs it will bring, but obviously education opportunities for young people and so forth. And so, and one of the things I did when I was elected to the Assembly was work on raising the minimum wage. New York State was stuck at the same level as the federal minimum wage for many years. And the federal government had already allowed states to raise it on their own, and many states have raised their minimum wage far above the federal level. And so as soon as I was elected, I joined with a group of labor and religious coalition. We did 40-hour fasts, 2001, 2002, 2003, and trust me, not eating for 40 hours is not easy.
You didn't eat for 48 hours?
Between 8 p.m. on, say, any given day.
Like Ramadan?
Say on a Monday. 8 p.m. on a Monday. It goes until 12 noon of 2 days later on a Wednesday.
Didn't eat anything?
No. And even though some of them...
What did you miss?
Some of them would fast with juice or with milk or whatever. I did water.
That's
I did strictly water, no milk, no juice, just had a big meal before 8 p.m.
I hope
that's
so.
it, and that kept me going until 2 days later. So
that's like they have the Ramadan now.
The first year was very difficult.
I'll bet.
Very difficult. But, your body gets used to it.
It does.
Your commitment allows you to maintain it. So the second and third years were easier, and eventually we raised the minimum wage in New York State. It's not extremely high or anything, but at least it's more than it used to be, much more, and it's higher than the federal government.
Sounds to me like it was in the tradition of Adam Clayton Powell.
Well, yes.
Same constituency, same concerns, the same social concerns.
Jobs.
And
for those who have jobs, we may not be able to find jobs for each individual, but at least for those who have jobs,
some services.
Good paying, decent paying jobs.
That was the thing that marked him, and civil rights was big there, and it's still there, unfortunately, a problem that has to be looked out for. And you got a lot of Puerto Rican, Latino people in your district, and you wanted to look out for the interests of them. And you know all about Puerto Rico, so that's a good position to be in for that district. Congratulations, that's really good. So those are the grounding principles. You're generally democratically inclined. That is for the people. There are a lot of different.
I'm a Democrat.
Yeah, you're a Democrat, but
progressive Democrat.
A progressive Democrat. That's very good. And then that's for the interests of the masses of the people, because a great deal of power and influence comes to be associated with those who have great wealth already. And there are many people who want to be sycophant to that, and it's a temptation to become concerned with the interests of the already well-to-do rather than the people that used to have to sit in the back of the bus, or the people that, you understand what I'm saying? You're with the folks in your inclinations and your ethics, right?
When you're elected, you have to represent your constituents. You have to balance also your own beliefs, obviously. But you also have to represent your constituents. And if your constituents are, poor, middle class, working class, then you can't represent the 1 or 2% that is wealthy.
A lot of people.
It's not that you dislike them, but you have to go with the majority. And the majority is crying out for better paying jobs, crying out for affordable housing, crying out for health care that they can afford. So that may not be the 1 or 2% wealthy, but it is the majority, the vast majority.
I don't know, James Joyce, a poet, he really understood technology and so forth, and he wrote it one time. A couple things I'd quote here. He said, "History is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to awaken." Wow. That's one. And he had another. I remember President Carter once was on television not too long ago, and he was asked, have we lived, and do we live in a just world? And he said, of course not. That the world, it was in the time of Rome, it was the emperors, and the serfs were wallowing around in the mud. The same thing under the kings and so forth. And now there's always
been... How about a more recent quote? Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett. Give me a Warren Buffett, yeah.
Warren Buffett was famously quoted as saying that, you know, he pays the same taxes as his secretary.
Right.
Because, unfortunately, we live in a society that, you know, rewards wealth to an extent that wants to almost punish poor people, almost punish working class people.
And that's most of the people.
When I was elected, absolutely. When I was elected to the New York State Assembly, a person making in New York State, a person in New York State making $40,000 a year was taxed at the same rate as a person making $40 million a year.
Yeah.
And we tried to change that, and it took years.
Yeah.
There was such resistance. Oh no, if you increase taxes on the rich, they're gonna fly out of town and move to Florida and this and that and the other, and it's not fair. And we need to do more with less, and government needs to reduce its size and not raise taxes. And all of those arguments have some legitimacy. But the fact is, how can a person making $40,000 a year pay the same rate as someone making $40 million a year?
As opposed to a progressive tax
Finally,
structure.
Right, it's wrong. Finally, we're able to have a more progressive taxation. So now people earning over $250,000, over $500,000, the tax table is progressive. You know, for them.
Seems to me
everybody should pay their fair share. It's only fair.
Fair share, and those that have more ought to pay more, in a sense, both in absolute terms and in percentage terms. It's only fair, it seems, in a way.
It's not about taxing people a lot, because if you look at my voting record in Albany, I'm not your average tax and spend, you know, Democrat. I voted against many taxes that come to the floor for a vote on different counties of the state. Many taxes. I don't believe with many taxes, because most of them are taxing working class people. Most of them are taxing the vast majority, 95% of people. So I don't necessarily believe with taxes, but I do believe in a progressive taxation for those who are wealthy. They need to pay a little.
So I wonder if there's I mean, there's return on it. Guys with the Laffer curve and all that kind of stuff talking about it. Mr. Bush, when he came in, the most recent president, seems to me the singular thing that he got through very early in his administration was a tax cut.
Right.
Overwhelmingly.
Let's talk about that.
I saw Paul Krugman write on that, and he said the benefits of that tax cut that he voted, a singular event in his beginning of his whole administration was a tax cut. The benefits didn't really even go to only the upper 1%. They went to the upper 100th of 1%.
Wow, look at that.
Overwhelmingly.
Well, anyway,
it was so geared toward helping the super wealthy. And now there's an issue before the country whether they want to let those...
Because they're coming up for... they're going to expire soon, and this is one of the things that I will hopefully tackle as the next United States Congressman for Northern Manhattan.
Okay.
And much has been said about these tax cuts and the expiration of the tax cuts, and some Republicans even dare call this if it's not extended, if it's repealed, they dare to call this a tax increase.
Yeah, right.
It is not a tax increase. It is simply the end of a temporary few-year period for the tax cuts.
That went overwhelmingly.
If I had a store and I say I'm going to lower my prices for the entire month of September because of Labor Day and back to school. Well, on October 1st, when I bring my prices back to what they were in August, I'm not raising the prices on you. I'm just bringing the prices back to where they were before. So to label this as a tax increase is a misnomer, and it's disrespectful and arrogant. The fact is, these are tax cuts. Now, we can debate whether they should be allowed to expire, to sunset or not. But the fact is the Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, has already said that tax cuts on the wealthiest 2% of Americans is the worst way to create jobs. It's a worst stimulus job program.
You're probably
so
too.
They need to be repeated. They need to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I was thunderstruck when that was able to get through the Congress, which included Democrats had to go anyway. That was the thing.
Indeed.
And I can remember Walter Heller when he advised Mr. Kennedy when he made a tax cut. The benefit went overwhelmingly to the middle and even some of the lower classes, which brings demand into the economy.
Yes.
The guys that have all the money, they got enough capital stored up. They don't need more capital accumulation. They need to have some demand built in for the ability of the people to buy what can be produced. And it had a whole different effect upon the economy. That was Walter Heller was different. But I mean, that's on a democratic view of things. And again, it's getting something to the people increasingly. Think things are getting better through time? For the masses of the people of the world. There's improvement coming from the technology and so forth. Are there more?
I believe it depends on who you ask. Okay. Obviously, if you ask somebody who doesn't have a job, is having a hard time finding adequate housing, nothing is getting better for them.
Two huge things, both of which are singular issues of interest to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right, okay.
But if you ask, people who are gainfully employed, at least have a decent job, decent housing, I think, they might say that over the last 20 years they're doing better. Oftentimes this nation is about opportunity, and oftentimes every generation does better, progresses than the previous one, so that our kids will do better than we are doing. But many are questioning that these days.
Yeah.
These are some difficult days.
Well, we have a very difficult time, don't we? It looks like the figures came. I'm watching Carolyn Maloney. I'm watching C-SPAN. Carolyn Maloney's chairing that committee on the Dodd-Frank committee and everything.
And, when
they get the reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's still 9.5, 9.6. It was 10% unemployment.
That's
the figures
national. That's a national figure.
Yeah, I know.
The fact is, when you look at neighborhoods like Northern Manhattan, which includes East Harlem, that I represent, Port Harlem, that I represent, Washington Heights, was featured in the New York Times as having the worst unemployment rate of any neighborhood in New York City. So when you look at all the neighborhoods in Northern Manhattan, you're looking at Great Depression.
How bad does it get at laborers in people in your district?
20, 22%.
No fooling. That high.
Yeah. When you say 9.5%, 10%, you're looking at a national average.
Right.
When you look at Northern Manhattan, unfortunately, we're suffering through a Great Depression, not just a recession.
Right. Well,
and here's where the incumbent brought in an empowerment zone with millions and hundreds of millions of dollars. And the fact is that the $300 million came and left, and no one was empowered except a small circle of friends. We have the highest levels of unemployment in this city.
Oh, and
There's something wrong with that.
Well, absolutely, that goes for, and also there are other things. I've done a lot of programs here and everything with stop and frisk things that go on. It seems to be there's a huge 80%, 85% of the people that have that occur are either black or brown.
Absolutely.
That's a problem because a lot of your people are there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they ought to be doing something about it because they're rousting people for no good reason and everything.
Are completely innocent.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we did something about the stop and frisk database.
Yeah, right.
And so in Albany, a couple of months ago, we passed a bill, signed into law by the governor, where that database that used to be kept on completely innocent people will no longer be able to be kept.
Well, I think they ought to have
fussing, the law enforcement was, yelling and screaming. But the reality is that if you stop and frisk somebody and you let them go because they're completely innocent,
they got a record.
No need.
You don't need to keep it.
Keep
yeah.
So finally, thank God we eliminated that database. And we really should eliminate the entire stop and frisk procedure.
Well, it's racial profiling, is it not? Is it not racial profiling? Hasn't it been here ever since the Fugitive Slave Acts and so forth? And the world is not just, as Mr. Carter said, and it's all coming down on the... And you're representing the interests of some of the people who are most disadvantaged, as it was. And I say, God bless you for that.
Advantages, not hinder them the progress.
Yeah, that's really good, Now, you're running for Congress, right? I am. You've been... So how long have you been? 10 years, did you say?
I've been in the Assembly 10 years.
How do you like it up there? How's it working up in Albany? Do you spend much? How does it work? How does it feel? I mean,
well, it's
Mr. Powell goes to Albany, Mr. Smith goes to Washington, but you know what I mean.
Yes, Albany is a very interesting place. It's changed over the years prior to even me getting there, and it is to some extent controlled by the three men in the room, as they say.
Mr. Silver,
the Assembly Speaker, it currently is Shelley Silver, has been for 16 years.
He has a lot of what they call power,
leader,
I think.
Of course. probably the most powerful of the three. The state Senate Majority Leader, who's now John Sampson. Actually, he's a conference chair, and the governor.
Yeah.
And we do have, as individual assembly members, 150 of us, and as individual state senators, 62 of them, we do have a say-so in what goes on and what goes into the final plate, so to speak. But it is heavily controlled by those three because you can't have 212 people, you know, legislate everything or pass a budget. So, but it is an interesting place. It's all based on seniority. I mean, you need years and years in Albany just to even be heard, just to even, you know, be a part of making a serious impact. So I enjoyed my time. The fact is that, you know, I enjoyed my time. And after 10 years, I could have easily ran for re-election to the Assembly with my eyes closed. Let's face it. You know, re-election to the Assembly is easy. But I've never believed in just doing the easy thing. And so on April 12th, I decided to announce my candidacy for the United States Congress. And again, I'm rolling the dice because I have to leave the Assembly in order to do that. So
you do? You can't?
I'm out. I'm out of the Assembly as of December 31st. That's a given. And hopefully, beginning January 1st, I will represent all of Northern Manhattan in the United States Congress. We'll finally have a voice and a vote that will dedicate his time, completely his time to public service, not political service.
Want to get to that, but if we can draw on 10 years is a long time and everything, and you learn, and is there, and there's others.
People up there that have been for 30, 35, 36 years.
Silver's probably been there a long time.
Shelley's been there about 35, 36 years.
Making good use of all that time.
Been there 40 years.
They used to have a guy, Conley, ran the Republicans, and what I'm asking, did you learn in a certain sense, and is there, and we have different systems in different states. We have Michigan, California, New York, all that, and you have these state representative organizations, including a Senate and a House Assembly, and that. Is there, and then a bicameral
system of government.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get at is so keeping that in mind. But looking at New York, you have a thing. Is there an analog between that and at the national level? We have a House of Representatives and a Senate and a president, and there's a great deal of power in the form of the President of the United States. Similar in the state of New York? Is it different? Is there any moderation of that? Is there any confederation sympathy found at the state level that is not so characteristic of the national? And has your time at the state level assembly served you well in terms of preparing you for working within the United States Congress? Are there differences?
Certainly has.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. I don't know the inner workings of the United States Congress. I will let you know come January. But it is a bicameral form of government. It has a House of Representatives, commonly referred to as a Congress. But it's really the House of Representatives, 435 of them, and the House of Senate, which is 100, 2 per state. And of course, the President of the United States is the executive at the federal level.
Huge, that presidency now. The office of the president is huge.
Sure, but so are the committees in Congress.
It's the same at the state? Is it the same at the state?
At the state level, the committees have some degree of power latitude. Chairs.
If I could,
but the speaker, I believe the speaker in the assembly holds a lot more power than
the Speaker of the House?
Of the Congress, only because in the Congress, I believe committee chairs, if I'm not mistaken, are there on a seniority-based system. They're not appointed by the Speaker. And seniority-based system, and they can also kill legislation at the committee level.
And which you're talking, more at the federal level than at the state level?
At the federal level. Committee chairs have more power at the federal level.
But you have committees and you have chairmanships and so forth that are powerful in the assembly, I should think.
There are also hearings in the federal level in terms of legislation at committee level. Unfortunately, in Albany, there are no hearings at the committee level. There's simply 10, 15-minute committee meetings, and everybody goes home.
Also, you have some media coverage of things in Washington that each of the state capitals don't get, by and large. There's not enough local news. We do a lot of that here on MNN. It's helpful.
You're talking about C-SPAN, I assume.
Well, I'm thinking of C-SPAN as being a great, good national service.
Yeah, of course. I don't know how many people watch that, but I'd be a real political junkie. But I'm sure some people do, and at least it gives you the option.
Half my time I'm watching C-SPAN because you get something from people that are, because it's interesting.
I'll watch it every now and then if it's something unique for a little while. But let me tell you, we started that C-SPAN similar to a C-SPAN program in the state assembly.
You did? Is it?
Yeah,
Where does
about 2-3
it?
years
Does it come
ago.
out here in Manhattan?
Sure,
Where?
sure.
What channel? What
I don't
channel?
know what channel.
You don't even know the channel that you're putting all your stuff on? You ought to get onto that, brother. You ought to get onto that, if I may suggest.
We just started it.
Yeah, and the national.
Look at it online.
Yeah. Okay.
During the times that the assembly's in session.
Right.
Which, by the way, is Monday afternoons. Tuesday afternoons and Wednesday mornings, for the most part.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday afternoons, Wednesday mornings between January and June. You can look it up online. If you go to assembly.state.ny, bingo, you can click on and the particular icon, and you can view on your computer. You can view the assembly proceedings.
It's wonderful what the technology is making available.
You know, it opens the door to people to be able to see it.
Right.
I mean, I bring a busload of constituents every year to Albany. It's about 40 or 50 of them that come, so they can see it for themselves. And that's a great experience, but not everybody can, you know, take a day off to do that. So it's great that we can open the windows and let people see the light inside this.
I'm interested in being, I do talk shows, so I interview a lot of different people. There's a great directory, I don't know if you're familiar, there are others and everything, but there's one called the Leadership Network, or Leadership directories. That's what it is. And what it is, it's a private sector thing, but they have the telephone numbers and the emails and all of the people who make up, and they got about 12 volumes. So they got judiciary, they got Congress, they got everything, and then they got business, they got finance, banking, lawyers, and that kind of public relations firms, and it's contact information and in depth, and it's big. It's like the encyclopedia. There's so many things. But the thing that really impressed me over...
Encyclopedias are going out of business.
Well, the Encyclopedia Britannica is because of the cyber.
It was in your day, even in my day. When we were young, we all had at some point as a teenager the gift of the encyclopedia given to us. You know, one book at a time, every month, or the whole thing. That's a thing of the past.
We had in my living
you can get everything on
in my living room when I'm older. So in my living room we had Encyclopedia Britannica and the Harvard Classics,
I'm
right?
Younger, but I remember I had an encyclopedia. Sure.
And do you remember the stacks? When you go into the stacks, you get a little card, you walk through, and you smell books.
You could look up something on the letter and look it up and page by page.
I know. I'm reminiscent for that, but it's all going electronic. Anyway, the point I wanted to make...
Even newspapers are going to be a thing of the past.
It's a great service. It's a great thing. It's here in town and everything, and they keep it, and it's also going onto the computer. So you got... But what the point I'm trying to get at is the one... that changed, 10 years, that comes out different. It did with me anyway. I got in touch with him. And the thing for the executive branch of the national government is huge. There is so much now within the federal executive branch, the office of the president. It just goes on and on and on and on and on with this people. In Wichita, you got a guy who takes care of corn, and they got it all in there. Is it the same at the state? Is the state, the governor, is the role of the government, the governor as the executive of the state of New York, as influential and powerful as the president of the United States and growing?
And when they automatic. So it really depends
let me finish
on the person and the personality.
Yeah, but let me finish one thing. I'm thinking not just personalities. There's there always, you know. But then the thing is the institutional structure is the executive function of our governmental public sector. Our organization of our society, as opposed to public sector, is the executive branch of the public sector growing in influence. And when the people talk about they're against big government, is that what they're addressing, or are you addressing that issue? No,
they're not certainly addressing the governor.
No, the institutional structure of the society is what I'm talking about within the governmental framework. Government, but when they're talking about the executive.
No, the executive's not that big. The executive's just put a few handful of employees. That's
you talking New York?
New York.
I'm saying at the federal level, the office of the presidency goes into everything, and it is huge. The numbers of people that are involved. Is it the same at the state of New York in terms of affecting society? That's what I'm getting at. And you're going to go into that environment.
Sure. I mean, but we affect only the state of New York.
Yeah.
Whereas at the presidential level, the federal executive affects the entire nation. So obviously it's going to be bigger, more bureaucracy. But it is but the New York State governor is influential. But it depends a lot on the personality. Some governors are more influential than others. Whereas I believe at the federal level, a president is automatically empowered. No matter who that president is.
And growing. Anyway, I'm just wondering about trends. I'm interested in sociological trends and everything that's going on and everything. So now you're getting your eye fixed upon the 15th District of House of Representatives in the Congress.
Support of the people, Tuesday, September 14th. we will see change after 40 years. Change is coming, and it's quite
Charlie
unique to
Rangel's
be in
our
those shoes.
representative now.
Yes, he is.
And he took over from your dad,
Yes,
if I'm
he
not
did.
mistaken,
Yes, he did.
in about
Yes, he did.
1970?
1970, that's
yeah,
correct.
that's a long run, yeah.
Yes, 40 years undoubtedly is a long run.
That's how
And he
long
creates
I've
a
been doing
legacy.
my table program.
There you go.
1970 was a major
There you
moment
go.
in the evolution.
I was a little
of society.
8-year-old boy back then.
Must
But
be
the
nice.
reality is that 40 years is a long run, obviously.
Yeah, right.
So there's some good there, and there's many people have been touched by that legacy. But the last couple of years have not been so good. The fact is, Mr. Rangel lost his chairmanship of Ways and Means.
Yeah.
So he lost his power. People may say, well, he still has the connections in Congress. The fact is, those same connections asked him to step down as chairman of Ways and Means. The fact is, those same connections are returning monies back to him that he had donated to them or given it away to charity. The fact is, those same connections are now asking him to leave with some sort of dignity because of all the ethical trials and tribulations he's facing. We won't go into detail into that. But even the president, Barack Obama, has asked him to, finish his career with some dignity. So
Didn't something like that happen with your dad?
yeah,
in
but
the
it was not-
in the Congress, there were problems, and
Not
he
quite,
fought that
not quite.
too. I think.
Well, yeah, but not quite, not quite. The fact is that every case is unique. My father was in his late 50s when all of this was, starting to happen.
Yeah.
Congressman Rangel is 80 years old, and if he was still chairman of Ways and Means, he could stay there until he's 100. But the fact is, he's no longer chairman of Ways and Means. He no longer has the power. So, if people vote for him, they're voting for him out of thanks for the memories, of sympathy.
Do you
but they're
remember
not
that
voting
song?
for him.
Do you remember that
yeah,
song?
but they're not voting for him out of any real power that he could deliver. Anyone who's elected to that congressional seat will have immediate respect, much more so than Mr. Rangel.
But 40 years is a long term. You build
long
up a
time.
lot of
And
connections and a lot of importance, and he's got a great.
People have a hard time letting go.
Absolutely,
People
yeah.
have a hard time
Well,
letting
it's
go.
true enough.
When you say
Somebody's-
change is coming, and I said this at a forum the other day, and there were one or two voices saying, never, never.
Never what now?
Change is not coming.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Never. And I said, everybody knows that change is coming because of all the ethical trials and tribulations Congressman Rangel is facing, because of the fact he lost his power because he's 80 years old. I mean, everyone knows that change is coming. The question is when, and the question is who will replace Mr. Rangel in the Congress. And again, there are some people that when I said that, who will replace at some point,
yeah.
we're like, nobody. And, it's difficult. Some people accept change better than others. It's very difficult. A few people are having a hard time letting go. But the majority of the people, and I've been out there 10, 12, 15 hours a day, the majority of people are accepting the fact that change is coming. Tuesday, September 14th, they're ready to turn the page. We'll respect the past, no doubt. We'll respect the legacy of Mr. Rangel, but we're going to turn the page into the future, and that's what's going to happen on Tuesday, September 14th.
Okay, and you got a number of people running, I guess, in that. Tassini's running, and some others and everything like that.
Tassini, the fellow who ran against Hillary Clinton 2006.
Yeah, right.
Was running against Kirsten Gillibrand now in 2010.
Yeah.
In May, he decided to run for Congress.
Jump in and everything like that because
Good
they
fellow.
could, and everything. I don't tell you the truth. I'm all over the lot. I'm interested in all kinds of things and everything like that, and I don't follow politics very much and everything. But how does it look? I mean, you got this election coming up. Is there polling and things like that that I haven't followed?
No, there was only one poll, and that was back in early July by publication out of Capitol Hill in Washington. And that poll said that Congressman Rangel was up by 18 points over me, with all the other candidates very, very far behind. So 18 points is very encouraging, because if you look at it, 2 months before the election, till Tuesday, September 14th, every challenger will narrow that gap as the election gets closer. Plus, a poll will never measure the energy of a respective voter. And for obvious reasons, the voter for Adam Clayton Powell will be much more energized to go out on Tuesday, September 14th, than a voter for Charles Rangel.
Why?
And this is why.
Why?
Well, because a voter for Charles Rangel is voting out of sympathy, is voting out of the memories. Like I said, thanks for the memories.
Who
even
is
his
that?
supporters,
Who's saying
even
that?
his support, even at his
Thanks.
announcement. First week in June, he announced his re-election, and supporters were saying, well, but Charlie Rangel can't go out like that, referring to the ethical troubles that may get him kicked out of Congress. He can't go out like that, referring to a possible challenger that may defeat him in an election. He can't go out like that. We need to support him because he needs to go out on his own terms. So they're appealing to a symbolic election.
Man who's done a lot of good for a lot of
yes,
people,
but
though.
Is that the reason to vote for him again? Or should the reason to vote for somebody will be, what are they going to do over the next 2 years? Because when you vote for Congress, you're voting for 2 years through December 31st of 2012.
If you get into
speculation is that he may not even finish through December 31st of 2012 if re-elected, which I don't believe.
You could always get hit by a Mack truck, anybody, going across Constitution Avenue.
But if you know for a fact that the man is in such hot waters that something may happen, or he may try to resign and manipulate the process, and he's not going to be there for the duration of the 2-year term that he's asking for your support, then why vote for him? Again, only because of the memories, only because of the symbolism and what he stood for, and only because of the longevity. Well, and I dare say, I challenge that reason, and that's wrong.
That's what you're in the race for.
And I tell you, most people that I speak to, I'm in a subway station every morning, Monday through Friday, every morning from 7 to 9. I'm at a subway station in the afternoon from 4:30 to 6:30. I go to the senior citizen centers, which people would think it's Rangel's base because he's been around. Well, no, let me tell you, we've gone to senior citizen centers all over, in Harlem, in Washington Heights, in East Harlem. The response I get on the streets, at the senior centers, walking the streets as we do on Saturdays, it's amazing. I've run a lot of campaigns in my 21 years running for office, and I've never seen anything like it. I truly have never seen it. It doesn't guarantee victory, but I can tell you that there's first of all, there's a resentment out there for all the violations that he did. I mean, the 4 rent control apartments, the monies that were found, this and that, but I'm not even talking about that. The fact is that there is a desire for change, a desire for new blood that is really a national phenomenon. It's not just in Northern Manhattan.
That's the way politics works, and you come along and you might be able to move into that.
These jobs are not forever. These jobs are not forever. They should not be forever. They're for a 2-year term, and every 2 years you have to ask the voters for their support again. And there should be reasons, besides what you did in the past or didn't do, there should be reasons of what you're going to do in the future. And many people see, if you didn't do it after 40 years, and you're no longer chairman of the Powerful Ways and Means, if you didn't do it after 40 years, what's the use of another 2?
Betsy, you have to run, if you're in the Congress, you have to, as soon as you get the election over, you're off and running to get campaign funds to run for the, it's just a constant campaign.
That's the way it works.
It's a constant campaign of getting money.
Like that.
Is it like that too? Not as bad as the House of Representatives.
Every 2 years.
How much does it cost?
We run the same day, September 14th, not only the entire New York State congressional delegation, but the New York State Senate and the New York State Assembly.
Would you like to see any? Would you like to see any election reform, or the way elections are done, or anything to get away from the fact that all the Congress people have to be concerned with every day of their life when they wake up is how am I going to get some money to run my campaign and pay for the TV ads in order to be successful and continue? You understand?
Sure.
Election campaign. Are you for reform? Are you in favor of that?
I'm all for campaign finance reform, and I've been a supporter. And participated in the New York City campaign finance system since its inception. 1989 was the first year it started. But I don't believe in changing the rules of the game as far as the terms. I know that 2 years is fast, it goes by fast. Listen, I've been in the Assembly for 5 terms, and I know that, like you said, as soon as you get reelected...
Is every 2 years in the Assembly?
Yes. I just
You're just running constant, right? Well, I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar.
The State Assembly, the State Senate, and the Congress, they all run the same year, even number. 2006, 2008, 2010. But the reality is I wouldn't change that. First of all, it sounds so self-serving. For any political elected officials say, oh, it should be 4 years, or it should be 10 years. No.
Lifetime.
Really,
I would like lifetime appointment, please. Yes, like a Supreme Court justice. You
have to go out and ask people for their support again and again. I'm all for that.
And that's something you would support, then?
Yes. Keep it the way it is. Not to support anything. Just keep it the way it is.
No, I don't know. I don't follow things carefully. You have to forgive me. That's the problem. Everybody I talk to, I've got an inch deep. But I'm real wide in terms of all kinds of things I'm trying to link it to, like pattern recognition and everything like that. And it seems to me, well, that's it. They got a thing, information technology. weren't, you know, the people who did that, they said information overload. You're in a system. Information overload permits pattern recognition. We're being inundated with exponentially increasing ability to have information at our behest that we haven't had. We've been here 200,000 years as a species. We got weapon systems that are species lethal. We got all kinds of problems. We're coming to a time of qualitative transformation, like and all that sort of thing. So there's a whole lot of different things going on. But as I see it, in terms of the local election, Mr. Rango's looking forward to being able to have the record made available in a way rather than have it be trumped up things that were allocated, and alleged, and he wants to have the record straight by being able to make it clear with some nuance about what went on. Now, that's his position, and if I'm not mistaken, it seems to me Adam Clayton Powell had the same problem, and he came back and fought in court, and you came back and fought election returns. So the idea of not going with the mood of the moment, that is a thing that happens with gossip columning and all that kind of politics. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's the position he takes.
This is not one ethical violation.
It happened with your dad. It happened with your family.
Yes, but we're not talking about my dad.
Okay.
We're not talking about 1970.
No, I'm just saying it's kind of interesting.
Now. My dad has been deceased almost 40 years.
Yeah,
we should
I know.
let him rest in peace.
Okay.
We're talking about 2010. We're talking about Congressman Charles.
Loved the man. Loved the man.
That's
he was
fine.
great.
He's my hero too. But like I said, he's been long gone. We're talking about 2010, and we're talking about Charles B. Rangel. This is not some soap opera where the the son should have the right to avenge. I'm not here to avenge anything.
Not avenge.
I have served for 20 years. We're talking about 2010. Charles B. Rangel faces not one ethical violation, not two, not three, not four, not five, 13. And if you or I faced half of that, if we had 6 ethical, they'd be throwing you out of the studio and they'd be throwing me out of the state assembly sooner than December 31st. That's a fact.
I think without exception, I have no violations ever in my whole 75 years of life. I have lived a perfect life. I've never made a mistake.
No one lives a perfect life.
Oh, I'm trying to make a claim
for that. The fact is this man is facing a trial that could get him expelled from Congress for 13 ethical violations. And for him to appear like there's nothing wrong, like I didn't benefit, there's no corruption, come on. 4 rent control apartments is a slap in the face to the Northern Manhattan community that has some of the biggest housing crisis in the city. You know, finding a $500,000 bank account, like I can find a $10 bill in my pocket, my jacket the next morning. Yeah, right? I wish I could find
a $500,000 bill.
$5,000. I'd be happy to find $5,000. You know, this man lied about his rental income, the Dominican villa. Some years he reported none. Some years he reported $5,000. That's money in his pocket because the Dominican villa is rented at $1,000 a night. And when investigators called from newspapers and from other sources, they were happy. They were too happy to say, oh, yeah, that's one of our more popular ones. It's rented every night between December and April. The point being, if it's rented every night for 3 or 4 months at $1,000 a night, how can you report $5,000 rental? That is money in his pocket.
Okay.
So if that's not corruption, then I don't know what
Well, help me. There's some people think the whole system's corrupt, and the thing is, when you get into yeah, well, all right, I know, and they got nuances.
Unless we do away with taxes altogether, we can do that.
Well, maybe do away with the system.
Exactly.
No, but really, the thing is that when you get into a thing where you got an economy that's in the trillions of dollars, you've got huge interests. You got great big companies that have multinational reach. You have all kinds of capability developing. There's huge amounts of money involved in government contracts and so forth. Huge amounts of things going on. A lot of different concerns and everything.
In Washington D.C., which is called CREW.
What's CREW?
CREW, C-R-E-W.
Yeah, okay.
Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. CREW is just the acronym.
Is that been there a long time?
It's been there a long time.
Is it public sector?
I don't know much about it, but I do know that they rate members of Congress. And out of 535, there are 435 in the House, as we mentioned, and 100 in the Senate. They rate the top 10 most corrupt. Charles Rangel has made the list the last 2 years in a row. This is not a joke.
Well, who's CREW, though? I mean, who's CREW? Is that David Beck, or is that Dave Beck, or some politically organized? There's so much. It's all K Street,
and the people are not stupid. The voters are a lot more intelligent than we give them credit for. You can fool some people some of the time. But you cannot fool everybody all of the time.
You can fool some of the people all of the time. No, what is it? It was Lincoln. You can fool some of the people some of the time.
But you can't fool all of the people all the time. You certainly can't even fool some of the people all of the time. You can't fool everybody.
Yeah, but it's not
or
a
even
2,
some
it's not
people
3,
all the time.
there's another one in there.
Well,
There's
the
another.
bottom line is voters are very intelligent. Voters know what's going on.
You
Listen,
think so?
I'm not perfect.
You're not?
Obviously,
Oh, shucks. What?
I'm not, but I'm not corrupt.
Leave the studio. I
But
thought
I'm
you
not
were
corrupt,
perfect.
but I'm
I'm
not
making
corrupt.
a joke.
There's a very different thing between being there's
Fair
a
enough.
very different thing between you know, being a failed person or a sinner or whatever.
Or inept,
you
maybe,
know,
yeah.
or
ineptitude.
being corrupt.
Yeah.
I'll leave it up to the voters, but we believe that Tuesday, September 14th, we're going to have a very big political earthquake in Northern Manhattan.
Well, we're going to see. That's
Everybody
Tuesday.
seems to think that the re-election of Rangel is a fait accompli.
Well, he's been a shoe-in for these many years, hasn't he? For you don't go in for 40 years without there being a lot of you know, chits and everything that you get, and you have a reputation.
Yeah,
that,
but he's never been exposed for what he apparently has been doing for so many years, as he has been exposed over the last few months.
well, we'll know by the 15th, right, of November.
Look, there will be people that will vote for him if he was handcuffed and thrown into Rikers Island and thrown away the key. There are people who are going to do that because of the past memories. But I dare say most voters are not going to vote based on past memories or the fact that he got me a job or an apartment 15 years ago or my cousin worked in. Most voters are more intelligent than that and will make their own decisions.
Well, we'll see whether that's the case. The overall charge is whether or not the system is inherently corrupting. The political system. When you're dealing with
Not
K
every member
Street,
of Congress has 13 ethical violations pending. Not every member of Congress is facing a trial on September 13th.
well, okay.
There are 535 members.
I'm not familiar.
535
I'm not
members.
familiar. I really am. I'm curious as a citizen, right? If you got a political context, and you got K Street, you got all those, you got
There's
so many
temptation
lobbyists walking around
There's
Washington now.
temptations for you as a
Yes,
private
and
citizen. There's temptations for every human being,
Right.
political, elected or non-elected.
And you're moving and shaking.
There's
You're getting a lot
temptations for
done. So
everybody,
things
sure.
happen. Things
There's
can happen.
temptations for everybody.
Now,
It doesn't excuse the wrongdoing.
help me out a little bit, okay, as a citizen, because I'm not familiar with it. The question of ethics and so forth, has it been a from the beginning, from the founding fathers, has there been a means by which the responsible members of society are dealing with the ethical conduct of the people? Were the people who covered Boss Tweed? Were the people who covered other people who were working with a power in a realpolitik world where you have to be realistic, or you have to lead the people rather than follow them because the people are not in on all the inside understand. You understand what I'm saying? Is that the ethical considerations, is it politicized? How does the political process serve in terms of the ethical ability to find some people who are in, how do they distinguish? Because there's always wheeling and dealing going on, money being exchanged and everything inherently, even within the business world.
Well,
there's all kinds of corruption that could
money
be
being exchanged.
Yeah,
Could be legitimate.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get at
If
is
you receive a contribution from a donor, that's a legitimate exchange.
What
if
I'm
you
saying,
go
it
buy
gets-
some goods from a store, obviously. That's
yeah,
an
no,
exchange
but
of money.
let's say, for instance,
But
I
there are
watch
some money
C-SPAN a
exchanges
lot.
that it's not legitimate.
I watch C-SPAN a lot, and I was listening to the things about the thing that happened after September 20, 2008 on the derivatives and
September
swaps.
20th, 2008.
Yeah, that's when Mr.
What's the
Paulson came in with 3 pages,
Got it.
and the whole damn Congress had to sign it by the end of the week, or the
end
president
of George
signed it, or the
Bush's
whole world
presidency.
was going to
At
fall
the end of
apart.
George
And then
Bush's
gets
presidency.
into the operation of the derivatives and swaps and derivatives and all of that. And do you listen to the people that are talking about that, what it is, and and one guy's trying to get a quarter point over this and that, and they do this, and then they do it in quick, and all this kind. It can't be understood by anybody other than somebody who's like a magician, and a lot of that translates over into the political process too. Fast moving, huge amounts of money and power and. Who runs herd on the private sector in terms of
doing right.
Yeah, but who runs herd on the private sector? Securities and Exchange Commission was lax on the job. Who runs herd on the politicians? Who is it that says this one's corrupt and this one isn't, and this one went over the board? How well is that system in place in terms of your understanding? And you have an obvious advantage by wanting to. No, I'm questioning it. No, I'm questioning. No, I'm trying to understand the process by which.
There's an organization called C.R.I.E.
Crew.
And
I know you said, who is Crew?
You should call them or go online.
I will.
Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington.
There's a thing called Fox News. There's a thing called Fox News, and there's Dave Beck, and there's all kinds of
and somebody else. This is one of the premier good government groups in Washington. They rate.
Who are the premier good? Who do we look to? Who do we look to? Who do we look to run herd on the system, both private sector and public sector, particularly when you get down to ethics, where you're into such arcane things as the system in reality is.
A dozen ethical violations it's a very honorable person. And has committed no wrongdoing.
Yeah,
you say that too, sure.
Well, they can go out and create a war. They go out and create a war and kill a lot of people, and they don't.
You know, he
they don't
served
call
for 40
them
years, so he's entitled to 4 rent control apartments. Why not? He served with distinction.
Well, all right.
And he found a $500,000 bank account. Sure, I mean that can happen to anyone.
Well, no, I'm asking philosophically.
He forgot to pay the rental income because, like he said, he doesn't understand Spanish. In the villas in Dominican Republic.
He doesn't know Spanish.
The corporate jobs that was the final straw that broke the camel's back and made his colleagues ask him to resign. As chairman of Ways and Means, the corporate paid for corporate funds out of overseas trips. He said, well, you know, his wife and his staff, they forgot to tell him. And so, you know, like I said, maybe somebody facing all those ethical violations is just one of the most honorable and, you know.
No, it's at the level,
a man with integrity.
I understand. I understand what you're saying, and right, could be. It could be. It's a synergistic. It's a synergistic. I understand. It's a synergistic world we live in. Its behavior system is unpredicted by the sum of the parts. There's something more.
For those who don't believe the crew or this organization is just all over the place and doesn't make any sense, for those who believe that you should hold yourself to a different ethical standard, they can go to my website, www.powellforcongress.com.
Say it again. Say it again.
www.powellforcongress.com.
That's spelled F-O-R.
F-O-R.
Not the number. Sometimes they put 4. It's confusing.
Or even in Spanish, powellparalcongreso.com.
Oh, you speak Spanish well. I see you're linguistic.
Born and raised in Puerto Rico.
Oh, right. Raised in Puerto Rico. Yeah, okay. Well, what I was looking at was at a little bit different level, I think, or trying to, because I'm not a politician. I'm not political.
And by the way,
and I'm very leery.
I'm in the political game, but I hate the word
You said you weren't a politician.
I'm not.
No,
I consider myself one. And
so you think of larger issues. You're intellectually inclined.
Yeah. I'm just a real person.
So what
I'm like the guy that says, you know what, I can't go into politics because
it's corrupt.
I'm just too. No. I'm just it's corrupt, or I'm just too real, or I'm just too. You know, I'll tell like it is. Blah blah blah. I'm sort of like that person, but you know, I believe in public service, so I'm trying my very best.
Okay, that's very good. What I was getting at was a little bit different and everything. I had a program I aired last week with the fellow. All kind. He was saying Waldheim was a war criminal. He became Secretary General of the UN, and he had been a Nazi war criminal because he had done certain things and everything.
Right.
And then I put the thing, having read Vonnegut and so forth, that there was total air superiority over Germany, and Eisenhower ordered firebombing of civilian areas. Firebombing, incendiary. Eisenhower was president, or Truman. Eisenhower was the military.
Got it.
Truman was president. There was they firebombing of civilians. They knew it was civilians in order to terrorize and killed hundreds of thousands of civilians with firebombing, both in Tokyo and in Dresden and other ports, when they had total air superiority. So that's a singular thing because it's a new weapon system. But the point is, why aren't they war criminals for dropping those things on civilians?
I agree.
What I'm trying to say is, you know, people try to say this guy's bad and everything, but the whole system is bad.
More peace-loving people in the United States Congress.
Thank you.
War doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
War has never solved anything.
But how do we decide who's good and bad? I guess that's like Plato or Socrates or something, you know. Yeah. But you think Adam Clayton Powell IV is good? No,
I said I'm a sinner. I'm a failed man, but I just do the very best I can.
Okay, that's good.
But I'm not corrupt.
Okay, that's really good. Well, it's really good talking to you, and all the best.